The Taliban just dropped a bombshell that nobody saw coming. While the world watches from the sidelines, they're building something absolutely massive. And no, this isn't about weapons or warfare. This is about control. Control over water that flows through multiple countries. Control over energy that powers entire regions. Control over minerals worth trillions that every major power wants their hands on. We're talking about projects so enormous they could reshape the entire Central Asian landscape. One canal alone is the biggest in all of Asia. And if that doesn't grab your attention, wait until you hear about the $60 billion corridor that China is quietly extending straight into Afghan territory. These aren't small-time construction jobs. These are nation-defining megaprojects that could either transform Afghanistan into a regional powerhouse or collapse spectacularly. Either way, what happens next will send shockwaves far beyond Afghanistan's borders. Let's talk about water. Not just any water, but the kind that entire nations depend on for survival. The Taliban is carving out the Kosh-Tepe Canal, and it's unlike anything Central Asia has ever seen. Picture this: 115 kilometers of man-made waterway slicing through desert terrain that's been bone dry for centuries. This thing is wider than California's famous aqueduct, which is saying something considering California moves water across an entire state. Right now, as we speak, 6,000 workers are operating massive excavators around the clock. These machines never stop. Day and night, they're digging through some of the harshest terrain on the planet, moving millions of cubic meters of earth to create this colossal channel. Here's where it gets intense. This canal is designed to divert 20% of the Amu Darya River's flow across northern Afghanistan's desert plains. When it's fully operational, it'll irrigate 550,000 hectares of farmland. To put that in perspective, that's larger than the entire state of Delaware. We're talking about increasing Afghanistan's farmable land by 1/3. Not 5%, not 10%, but a full third of their agricultural capacity added in one shot. If this works, Afghanistan could become completely self-sufficient in food production by 2026 or 2028. No more relying on imports. No more food insecurity. The Taliban would control their own food supply, which is massive leverage in any negotiation. The investment numbers are staggering. The total cost is estimated at $684 million, and the Taliban has already pumped in an additional $100 million of their own money. That shows serious commitment. But here's where things get spicy. Uzbekistan and Turkmenistan are watching this with growing alarm. Both countries depend on the Amu Darya River for their cotton fields and agriculture. Cotton is Uzbekistan's economic lifeblood. Turkmenistan needs that water for their crops too. And Afghanistan is basically telling them, we're taking our share, and we don't really care how you feel about it. There's no international treaty stopping them. There's no agreement in place. The Taliban is just building, and their neighbors can't do much except complain. Reports from October 2024 show that the second phase of construction is over 80% complete and running ahead of schedule. The Taliban is moving faster than most people expected. They've managed to mobilize resources, coordinate thousands of workers, and push through bureaucratic obstacles that would bog down most governments. Water has become Afghanistan's most powerful weapon, and they're not shy about using it. This canal isn't just about farming. It's about sending a message to every country downstream. Afghanistan controls the source, and they're going to use it. But the canal is just the beginning. The Taliban isn't stopping at one water project. They're building dams all over the country, and each one serves a strategic purpose. Take the Bakhshabad Dam, for example. They announced fresh construction on this project, even while having active diplomatic disputes with Iran over water rights. Iran needs water from rivers that flow through Afghanistan. The Taliban knows this. And they're building anyway. That's a power move. It tells Iran and everyone else that Afghanistan is done playing by other people's rules. These dam projects accomplish multiple goals simultaneously. First, they generate hydroelectric power, which means Afghanistan becomes less dependent on energy imports. Right now, they import electricity from neighboring countries. That's expensive, and it gives those countries leverage. Build enough dams, and suddenly Afghanistan controls its own power supply. Second, the dams provide irrigation for agriculture, supporting the Taliban's push toward food self-sufficiency. Third, and this is the clever part, they give Afghanistan negotiating power with downstream countries. Want water? You'll need to talk to the Taliban. Need power? Same deal. It's classic geopolitical strategy wrapped up in infrastructure projects. What's really caught people off guard is how effective the Taliban has been at cutting corruption. Under the previous US-backed government, billions in aid money disappeared into Swiss bank accounts and vanished through shell companies. Infrastructure projects would get announced, money would get allocated, and somehow nothing would get built. The corruption was legendary. But multiple reports suggest the Taliban has dramatically reduced this problem. They're actually completing projects. World Bank reports show they collected $2.3 billion in revenue during 2023-2024, and instead of that money vanishing, it's going into roads, dams, and canals. Love them or hate them, the Taliban is getting things done. Now let's shift to something even more ambitious. Kabul New City. This isn't renovation. This isn't expansion. This is building an entirely new urban center from scratch. The plan covers 722 square kilometers, which is roughly 1.5 times the size of current Kabul. The Taliban wants to construct 250,000 residential units that could house between 1.1 and 3 million people. We're talking about creating a modern metropolis to ease Kabul's crushing overcrowding problem. Right now, Kabul is bursting at the seams with refugees, rural migrants, and a growing population that the existing infrastructure can't handle. Traffic is nightmarish. Pollution is terrible. Housing is inadequate. The Taliban's solution is to build an entirely new city. Phase 1 alone is divided into 206 sections. The Golden City section will provide 42,000 housing units for 230,000 people across 372 hectares. Construction on Parcel B restarted in August 2023 with plans for 6,600 housing units for 40,000 residents. Then, in late 2024, they launched Parcel 2.6 with a whopping $700 million investment. That parcel alone will provide 52,000 units for 330,000 residents. But it's not just about cramming people into apartments. The Taliban envisions universities, medical clinics, shopping centers, and green spaces. They want schools, hospitals, reliable utilities, and parks. It's a complete urban ecosystem designed from the ground up. The project timeline spans 30 years across 2 main phases, featuring commercial zones, agricultural areas, and recreational facilities. If they pull this off, Kabul New City would rank among the largest planned cities in Asia. That would put Afghanistan on the map for urban development in a way nobody expected. And here's something interesting. Investors from Turkey, Qatar, UAE, and Iran have all expressed interest. These countries see opportunity. They see contracts worth billions. They see a chance to gain influence in Afghanistan by financing construction. The Taliban is playing different regional powers against each other, getting the best deals they can while maintaining control of the project. Geography has always been Afghanistan's greatest asset, and the Taliban understands this better than most people realize. Afghanistan sits right in the middle of some of the world's most important trade routes. It's the bridge between Central Asia, South Asia, and the Middle East. Whoever controls Afghanistan controls access to markets worth trillions of dollars. The Taliban is building infrastructure to capitalize on this position in ways that could reshape regional trade patterns for decades. In May 2025, China, Pakistan, and the Taliban signed a trilateral agreement that shocked a lot of observers. They're extending the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor directly into Afghanistan. CPEC is already a $60 billion mega-project connecting China's Xinjiang province through Pakistan to the Arabian Sea. Now it's coming to Afghanistan. This creates a direct link from Western China through Pakistan into Afghanistan, giving China access to Central Asian markets and, crucially, Afghanistan's mineral wealth. For China, this is about securing resources and expanding influence. For Pakistan, it's about regional connectivity and economic benefits. For the Taliban, it's about legitimacy and revenue. But the real game changer might be the Trans-Afghan Railway project. This $4.8 billion railway will stretch 573 kilometers, connecting Uzbekistan to Pakistan through Afghan territory. Right now, shipping goods between these regions takes 35 days. This railway would cut that time to just 4 days. Think about what that means for trade. Faster shipping equals lower costs, equals more business, equals more revenue. Construction is set to begin in 2025, and it's going to be an engineering nightmare. They'll need to build over 300 bridges and carve out 5 major tunnels through some of the most challenging terrain on Earth. Mountains, valleys, unstable ground, extreme weather. It's going to be expensive and difficult. But if they manage it, Afghanistan becomes a critical link in a railway network connecting multiple regions. Meanwhile, the Kaf-Herat Railway connecting Afghanistan to Iran became operational in 2023. The first cargo shipment, 655 tons of railway equipment, was successfully completed. This gives Afghanistan access to Iranian ports and global shipping networks. Suddenly, Afghan goods can reach international markets through Iran, and goods from other countries can enter Afghanistan through Iranian railways. The Taliban is essentially telling the world, you might not recognize our government and you might not like us, but you absolutely cannot ignore our geography. And they're right. Geography doesn't care about politics. Here's where things get really fascinating. About 20 years ago, 4 countries started planning something called the TAPI pipeline. Turkmenistan, Afghanistan, Pakistan, India. The idea was to transport 33 billion cubic meters of natural gas annually across all 4 nations. It would have been transformative, but the project got stuck in the planning phase for 2 decades. Political instability, security concerns, financing problems. It just never happened. Until now. In September 2024, the Taliban did something nobody saw coming. They restarted construction on Afghanistan's portion of this $10 billion pipeline project. Taliban spokesman Zabihullah Mujahid announced that work had officially begun on Afghan soil following ceremonies with Turkmenistan officials. This pipeline will run 1,821 kilometers, passing directly through some of Afghanistan's most volatile regions. If completed, it could generate close to $1 billion in annual revenue for Afghanistan while creating thousands of jobs. As of October 2025, 14 kilometers have been completed. That might not sound like much, but it's progress on a project that sat dead for 20 years. The Taliban sees this as their ticket to energy independence and regional influence. Natural gas is valuable. Countries need it for heating, electricity, and industry. Controlling a pipeline means controlling supply, which means leverage in negotiations. But here's the really wild part. The original TAPI project was actually negotiated. With the Taliban back in 1998, before 9/11 changed everything. The Taliban was in power then, and they were working on this exact same pipeline. Then the US invasion happened, the Taliban government fell, and the project died. Now the Taliban is back in power 25 years later, and they're picking up exactly where they left off. It's like they hit pause in 2001 and pressed play again in 2024. There's another cross-border energy project that's equally important but gets less attention. CASA 1000. This $1.2 billion electricity transmission project is designed to bring clean hydroelectric power from Kyrgyzstan and Tajikistan down through Afghanistan and into Pakistan. Central Asia has massive mountain ranges with lots of water, which means lots of hydroelectric power generation. But the countries with the most electricity don't have the biggest populations. Kyrgyzstan and Tajikistan generate more power than they can use. Meanwhile, Pakistan and Afghanistan desperately need electricity for their growing cities and industries. CASA 1000 would transmit 4,300 megawatts of electricity total. Afghanistan would receive 300 megawatts for its own use, enough to power roughly 1 million homes. Another 1,000 megawatts would continue south to Pakistan. This solves the power shortage problem for 2 countries while generating transit fees for Afghanistan. But here's the twist that shows how complicated international politics has become. The World Bank actually approved resuming this project in 2024 despite not officially recognizing the Taliban government. They created what's called a ring-fenced arrangement. All payments stay outside Taliban control, managed by third parties, but the construction continues on Afghan soil. The Taliban doesn't touch the money directly, but they get all the economic benefits of hosting this massive infrastructure project. They get jobs for Afghan workers. They get 300 megawatts of electricity for their grid. They get international legitimacy from working with the World Bank, even indirectly. It's a pragmatic solution that acknowledges reality while maintaining political positions. Afghanistan's location has always been its biggest strategic advantage. But now there's something else. Something buried deep underground that could be worth more than all the pipelines and railways combined. Afghanistan is sitting on one of the largest untapped mineral reserves on the planet. Estimates range from $1 trillion to $3 trillion in total value. We're talking about lithium, which is essential for electric car batteries and smartphones, copper for electronics and construction, rare earth elements that are critical for high-tech manufacturing, iron ore, gold, gemstones, you name it. Some geologists have called Afghanistan the Saudi Arabia of lithium because the deposits are so massive. And for the first time in decades, there's a government stable enough and motivated enough to actually start extracting these resources. The most famous example is the Mezinot copper mine. China has held mining rights here for 15 years. 15 years. They've announced the start of operations multiple times, only to see security problems and political instability shut everything down. But in July 2024, they finally cut the ribbon to begin operations, and this time it feels different. The Taliban is providing security that previous governments couldn't guarantee. Chinese mining companies aren't worried about insurgent attacks anymore because the insurgents are now the government. That changes everything. The Taliban has also been aggressively taxing mining operations throughout the country. World Bank reports show they collected $1.54 billion in revenue in 2022, with much of it coming from taxes on mining and reconstruction industries. That number jumped to $2.3 billion in the 2023-2024 fiscal year. The Taliban is creating a self-sustaining economic cycle. Mineral wealth pays for roads and tunnels, which makes it easier to extract more minerals, which generates more revenue for more infrastructure projects. It's a feedback loop that could potentially lift Afghanistan's economy if managed correctly. Afghanistan has an estimated 60 million tons of copper, 2.2 billion tons of iron ore, and 1.4 million tons of rare earth elements. These materials are critical for the global green energy transition. Electric vehicles need lithium and copper. Wind turbines need rare earth elements. Solar panels need various minerals. As the world shifts away from fossil fuels, demand for these materials is skyrocketing. Afghanistan has them in abundance. China obviously wants access, but so does Russia, Iran, and Turkey. Multiple countries are competing for mining contracts, which gives the Taliban options. They can play different powers against each other to get the best deals. Now let's talk about something that kills 40 people every year: the Salong Tunnel. This isn't just a death trap, it's also a lifeline for Afghanistan. The tunnel sits 11,000 feet above sea level in the Hindu Kush Mountains, and it's the main connection between northern and southern Afghanistan. Built by the Soviets in 1964, this 2.7-kilometer tunnel has become notorious as one of the most dangerous roads in the world. The road inside is unpaved, filled with choking dust and smoke. The ventilation system is broken, so poisonous carbon monoxide builds up to deadly levels. There's a constant threat of avalanches. The tunnel was designed to handle 2,000 vehicles daily, but it now sees up to 9,000 during peak times. In 1982, the deadliest road accident in history happened inside this tunnel. Collisions caused fires and explosions that killed up to 2,700 people. It was an absolute catastrophe. And for decades, nothing was done. The tunnel kept deteriorating, people kept dying. Truck drivers and travelers knew the risks but had no choice. There's no alternate route. If you want to go from North to South Afghanistan, you go through Salong. But in December 2023, Taliban officials announced something remarkable. They had completely reconstructed the tunnel. They spent $100 million of their own money, which represents about a quarter of Afghanistan's entire annual tax revenue. That's a massive investment for a tunnel, but it shows how serious the Taliban is about infrastructure and connecting different parts of the country. The reconstruction included new ventilation systems, paved roads, lighting, and safety features. It's no longer a death trap. It's a functional, relatively safe tunnel that can handle the traffic volume it actually sees. Moves like this demonstrate the Taliban's priorities. They're not just building glamorous projects for international attention. They're fixing critical infrastructure that directly affects ordinary Afghans. A farmer who needs to transport goods from north to south can now do so without risking their life. A family traveling to visit relatives doesn't have to worry about carbon monoxide poisoning. These practical improvements build support among the population in ways that political speeches never could. So where does all this lead? The Taliban has gone from insurgent fighters hiding in mountains to government officials cutting ribbons at construction sites. They're simultaneously building the largest canal in Asia, constructing an entirely new city, extending railways to multiple neighbors, restarting a 20-year-old pipeline project, and beginning to extract trillions in mineral wealth. That's an incredibly ambitious agenda for any government, let alone one that just took power a few years ago and faces international sanctions and non-recognition. If these projects succeed, Afghanistan could transform into a regional economic hub. They'd control critical water resources, making downstream countries dependent on their cooperation. They'd sit at the intersection of major trade routes, collecting transit fees and facilitating commerce between regions. They'd export minerals and energy, generating revenue that could fund education, healthcare, and further development. They'd have leverage in regional politics that Afghanistan hasn't enjoyed in decades. The Taliban would go from international pariahs to pragmatic partners that other countries need to work with. But there's an equally likely scenario where this all falls apart. These projects are expensive, technically complex, and politically sensitive. The canal could fail if engineering proves too difficult or if neighboring countries take aggressive action to protect their water supplies. The new city could become a ghost town if people don't actually want to live there or if the Taliban can't provide basic services. The railways could stall due to financing problems or security issues. The pipeline could face the same obstacles that delayed it for 20 years. The mining operations could get bogged down in environmental concerns, labor disputes, or corruption. And through it all, the Taliban still faces internal divisions. Economic challenges and international isolation. What happens in Afghanistan over the next decade won't just affect Afghans. It'll impact water supplies in Uzbekistan and Turkmenistan. It'll influence trade routes between China and Central Asia. It'll determine whether trillions in minerals reach global markets. It'll affect energy supplies to Pakistan and India. It'll shape how the world engages with governments it doesn't officially recognize. The Taliban is betting everything on this infrastructure-driven transformation. They're using geography, resources, and sheer determination to force the world to take them seriously. Whether they pull it off or crash spectacularly, the ripples will be felt far beyond Afghanistan's borders. The stage is set. The projects are underway. Now we wait to see if ambition translates into reality, or if this becomes another chapter in Afghanistan's long history of unfulfilled potential.